There, this is Karma, the life coach, aka Karthik Madugula, once again for our podcast on Own Your Day, where I teach you how to own your day to win at life, leadership, and business. So, today's topic that I have on my hand is all about, these comparisons with others. Okay, comparisons with others is the topic that we have for today. And I have received a series of questions, which first I'm going to read the questions, and then we're going to address one question after the other in series. So the questions that I have here are: what is comparison? Why do people compare? What is the science behind the desire to compare? What are the negative effects of comparison? Are there any positive effects of comparison at all? How does comparison affect confidence? What do people compare on? Various types of comparison. Is life truly unfair? How to deal with feelings of life being unfair? A world without comparison, how would it look like? Very good question. Is comparison even ever accurate? How to avoid comparison? What are the steps involved? And the bonus question that I'm going to answer today is: what is a better way to live in life instead of comparing? So let's start with our first question, which is: what is comparison? Comparison is when you basically measure up your state of life in any aspect with someone else and either feel jealous, insecure, or inferior on any of these topics at all. Okay, so that is us being comparing with others and then letting that comparison affect us. Now sometimes there is positive comparison also, which we are going to talk about later, but majority of comparison actually does no good to anyone. Why do people compare? What is the science behind the desire to compare? The reason why people compare is because somewhere inside themselves they are trying to prove to themselves that they are good, or somewhere inside themselves they are trying to validate their feeling that they are not good enough. So either they are trying to prove that they are good by comparing to someone else and feeling that they have superior things, or they are validating the feeling of I'm not good enough by comparing with someone else and then making that a proof. So essentially it's an internal belief or a feeling of I am good or I'm not good enough, which is then being proven 10,000 times over by various comparisons that people do time to time. So it's not that you start a comparison and then you start having a feeling. In most cases, it's you already have the feeling, and then based on that feeling of I'm not good enough or I'm good, you start this comparison and you continue to prove that feeling to yourself. It is like a self-constructed bias towards that feeling, constantly going in that direction. As a result, you get insecurity, you get inferiority complex, you get jealousy, and various other things that are negative effects of comparison as well. And which brings us to the next question: what are the negative effects of comparison? So as I already said, insecurities, inferiority complexes, being unable to have a nice conversation with someone without having an agenda inside your mind, jealousy, envy, and the list can keep going on and on. Essentially, the biggest negative effect that comparison can have on a person is restlessness inside their mind and heart. Yes, whether it is a superiority complex or whether it is an inferiority complex, both ways there is restlessness inside yourself to continue to prove that that complex is correct. So that's the biggest negative consequence of constant comparison. That constant restlessness to keep up with everybody else, that constant restlessness to one up other people when they are one upping on you, that constant restlessness to continuously belong in trends, keep buying things, and as a result increase your consumerism, increase your stress, anxiety levels, and everything of that sort. So restlessness and the results of restlessness, like constant keeping up, constant trendy behavior, all these things are the largest negative effects of comparison, in my opinion. Are there any positive effects of comparison? So if done in the right way, what comparison can do is it can give you some motivation and aspiration to what kind of things you can look up for. So you can only do this when you are in a positive mode in your life and you are comparing for example. You are comparing for inspiration and aspiration. You are not comparing for letting yourself down or getting into any negative emotions as such. So comparison can only work in a positive way when a person is positive inside in the first place. And in that case, they'll take inspiration or they will get some ideas from around them, which they will use as aspiration as to what kind of energy that they can live up to. So um, that's the positive effects of comparison, if there are any. How does comparison affect confidence? See, the way comparison affects confidence is in this manner that if you're constantly comparing, what is happening is there is a constant battle of restlessness inside you to prove whether you're good enough or not good enough and all these other things. So this amount of restlessness, even if someone is functioning from superiority complex, even if one or two times their comparisons don't work out or what they think fail, it massively affects their confidence. And if they're coming from a negative side of comparison, which is where I'm feeling inferiority complex, it's already a destruction to confidence. So constant comparison and restlessness gives that anxiety, and over a period of time makes one's confidence very, very dependent on these external aspects more than finding internal self-worth. The thing with the external world is it's always changing. So if your source of confidence is coming from a wave of life, then rest assured that it can never remain constant. So comparison severely affects confidence even for a person in superiority complex, because they'll be still subject to the wave of the external life, which is always oscillatory. Sometimes things work, sometimes things don't work, and it's in that oscillation. So this leaves a person ultimately affected even if they're in superiority complex. If they're in inferiority complex, they're already a lost case. That's a separate matter altogether. But even if they're in superiority complex, them being subjected to this wave will significantly tire them out, and over a period of time, at an intrinsic level, although they might be putting a show out there, at an intrinsic level, it affects confidence in a significant way. What do people compare on? Various types of comparison. See, people can compare on various things. It could be comparison on beauty standards, complexion, height, skin type, apparel, attire, clothing. It could be on cars, bikes, on any things that people may have. It could be on houses. It could be on salaries. It could be on positions. It could be on any externally visible milestone as such. So people can compare on various degrees like this, because as I said, comparison is all about you trying to prove your internal bias of a belief that you have, whether you're good enough or you're not good enough. So you'll use all these external metrics or measurements or milestones to continue to prove that it's right. And the more you're addicted to this process of comparison, the more you will continue to try to prove, and the more you will get into that restlessness, as we already talked about. Is life truly unfair? How to deal with feelings of life being unfair? So one of the biggest feeling that people have, especially when it related to comparison, is when they compare and then they start feeling life is truly unfair. I'm working so hard, I'm still not getting the things that I deserve, while this other person may not be working that hard, but they still get what they want. How is life then fair? So the answer to this question is yes, life can be unfair. I mean, you look at the start of life itself. Someone is born as Ambani's scion, and someone is born as a Bikari's, beta. So how can we say that life is not unfair when, if this at the start itself, it can start on such an uneven ground? So life is unfair. And is there fairness to that unfairness? If you go into birth after death and karma theory and all these things, there is explanation for that in terms of you're paying off your karmas from the past lifetimes or whatever that is. So there is some fair explanation to that unfairness. But if you don't want to get into all of that, let's just start with the basic that life is unfair right at the start. Okay, and it can continue to remain unfair throughout your time here. So you may work harder than other people to get what you consider as basics, and you may see other people working so much easier and still getting 10 times more or 10,000 times more than what you're getting. So how to deal with these feelings of unfair? See, the reality is life may be unfair to start with, and award us with severe disadvantages, but it always gives the opportunity to climb. You may be on the first floor and someone may be on the 50th floor, but it still gives you legs and hands to catch the railing and to utilize your leg muscles, motor muscles, and start climbing the stairs. So instead of focusing on what situations life places you in, or what kind of ease or unease it gives you, what kind of ideological mix it keeps you, and what kind of family or environment it puts you in, irrespective of all of it, with all these oppositions and things working against you, you can still do your best to put your foot forward and start climbing the staircase. So yes, at the bottom, the air pressure coming down may be severe while you're coming up. So there is lots of resistance at the bottom, and that we can see that in life also in general. If you have 1 lakh, making the next lakh is harder, but if you have 10 lakh, making the next lakh is easier. If you have 1 crore, making the next crore is harder. If you have 10, 12 crores or 10, 20 crores, making the next crore is easier. That is how life works. When you're at the bottom, it's harder. When as you go up, it becomes easier. Okay, so we can either focus on all these resistances, or we can focus on the simple fact that we are doing our best to apply ourselves every day, and with that satisfaction of the effort, we can go to sleep no matter what the outcomes turn out to be. This, I think, is a more productive way to handle with how life is unfair in general. Okay, so that is how you can deal with the feelings of life being unfair. A world without comparison, how would it look like? See, in a world without comparison, I think what will happen is everyone will just wake up, do their best, enjoy their time, have a beautiful day, and go back to sleep comfortably. This is exactly what would happen. No one would think what someone else is doing. No one would think, oh, what they're doing is cool, what I am doing is uncool. No one would get confused between 10,000 options in life because they are not comparing themselves to other people. So, whatever option that they innately already know that they're comfortable with is what they're going to pursue without getting into the confusions given by comparisons. In most cases, a lot of people get confused in their career choices and life choices because they measure it up with other people and they think that the other people's choices are better than their choices, and they don't even do their choice really well. So if comparison is off in an ideal world, people will stop getting confused and they'll be more clear. They will choose what feels comfortable to them. They'll choose what feels meaningful to them, and just pursue that path without questioning what results it may hold or what prices one may have to pay on that path. So as a result, I feel that in a world without comparison, people will feel very, very meaningful and will live a very, very comfortable and satisfactory life, knowing just this much, that they have done their best and they deserve a good night's sleep. So it's a beautiful world. If you can create that, at least for yourself, I'd be really happy for you. Is comparison even ever accurate? And this is the most important thing. Comparison is actually never accurate. Reason why is because when we compare with someone else on the externals, right? Like he has that much money, he has this position, he has this situation, he has this working for him, or she has that working for her, or whatever it is. So we compare on the surface, but we forget to take into account the context. Every person that you meet comes from a different place, with a different upbringing, with a different set of values and understandings, and different set of belief systems, different sets of confidence, different sets of energy and enthusiasm and passion, or whatever it is that you want to take as a consideration. So every person has a different journey. As a result, each person is a different context within themselves. So if we just measure the output or the surface without looking at the context of two people, you may think that both of these people are 25 years in age, both have gone to the same college, have done the same degree under the same professors, but yet one is scoring 9-point average above and one is scoring only 5-point average above. What's the case here? And you may compare it that way. Maybe this other person is going through mental health challenges. Maybe they do not have the confidence and resilience to go through tough situations and deal with a lot of assignments or a lot of professors courses and deal with social situations. So if you don't look at all these contexts, you will simply compare on the surface and think that this guy is a idiot, or he's a waste of time, or he's a waste of space. But you will be absolutely wrong to do so. So thus, all comparison is inaccurate. All comparison is inaccurate because no comparison takes into consideration the context of a person. It only measures people on the surface and make blanket comparison on the surface. So comparisons are actually never accurate, and that's why it's wise to never compare with anybody else. If you do still want to compare, I think what you can do is you can compare with yourself of yesterday. If in comparison to yesterday, you're a better version today, you're doing more today, you're more productive today, you're more happy today, you're more satisfied today, you're more content today, you're more grateful today, and you're trying a little bit harder today, that's all that you need. You don't need anything else, right? So if at all you still have to compare, please compare with yourself. Now, how to avoid comparison? What are the steps involved? See, the way to avoid comparison, according to me, is understanding, as we just talked, that first, that comparison is never accurate. It's never going to be accurate because the contexts of every person will be different. They'll come in from different places. So it will be an apple orange comparison. That's the first step. Recognizing that comparison itself is never going to be accurate. Two, the second step to come out of comparison complex is to start working on your inner feelings of I am good or I am not good enough. You're most probably stuck in this loop if you're comparing a lot. So start resolving your inner feelings by yourself if you can, or you can visit a therapist if you are able to find one for yourself. So visit a therapist or do it by yourself, but start working on that inner feeling. And then third step, as a result, focus more on what you input into life, which means your effort, rather than what situations you are placed into. These are the three ways to come out of comparison. I'm going to repeat myself again. The three ways to come out of comparison is first, recognizing that comparison itself is always inaccurate, so that you stop looking at anybody else's journey. Two, you want to start working on your inner feelings of I am good enough or I am not good enough. And then three, as we discussed, making sure that you do not focus on the external aspects or situations or circumstances and just focus on your effort in life. So make your effort in life your metric for happiness. These three simple steps will help you come out of comparison. Now, the last question, the bonus question that I have today: what is a better way to live life instead of comparing? So, as we already talked about in a simple way, the best alternative to comparison in life is perhaps comparing with yourself if you can't stop comparing. If you compare with yourself and if you just start doing 1 millimeter better every day, this is the best way to do life. So with discipline, can I commit to doing 1 better every day? And if I can do that, then I can stop looking at the entire world and just focus on my journey. This by far, according to my knowledge, is the best alternative to living a life with comparison and restlessness. So that's all for the podcast today on comparison. And in summary, what I'm trying to say here is, please do not compare because these comparisons are going to be ineffective and inaccurate, because they never consider the context and they'll only measure you on the surface. And as a result, only focus on comparison with yourself of yesterday and try to make 1 millimeter progress every day. If you have loved this podcast, please go ahead and into the comment section and write down your most important learning from this podcast, so that everybody else may actually benefit out of your wisdom and your knowledge. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember that all you have to do in your life is to own your day every day. Because if you own your day every day, the weeks, the months, and the years will be yours to rule. Thank you so much.